Women will bang a guy, even if they don't like him, but if they respect him, she'll still bang a guy that she respects, right? But when you lose a woman's respect, you're kind of losing that relationship. It's kind of ending. It'll be a long walk home in those high heels. And she just shut up. It worked perfectly. Guys would get called a jerk. And women have only ever called guys jerks if they like them. And it's interesting to note that they're only calling guys that they're attracted to jerks.
All right, let's go into talk about more mistakes that kind of some men make. And we talk about the nice guy versus a kind man. We hear this term, nice guy, and you want to be thought of as nice. What's the difference between the two, being nice versus being kind?
Well, I mean, the biggest difference is that nice guys are usually people pleasers and they create covert contracts in their head, right? So it's like they think in their head, if I buy her house in the neighborhood that she wants and I renovate the kitchen the way that she wants and I build the in-law suite and move her parents in, these covert contracts that they make that aren't actually signed between two people, he thinks that, he's going to get her best out of that relationship. So that's the first thing that generally happens. The other thing too is they just people please everybody, right? They don't have the ability or they lack the ability, to say no, to sort of lead things, to, put themselves in a position where, they're essentially anti-fragile, if I can put it that way. Like, whenever chaos sort of comes at them, they don't sort of roll with it. They don't go with the punches. They don't sort of like, just, bend over and take it sort of thing. You can be a very kind man. As an example, I walked in the coffee shop a couple of weeks ago. I was with some friends, and there was a guy in a wheelchair sitting out front, and he said, "Hey, could you get me a bagel with some cream cheese on it?" I didn't even flinch. A bagel's a couple bucks, no big deal. The guy's obviously, down on luck. Grab my coffee and my stuff. I walk out, hand him a bagel. I said, you have yourself a great day. Like, that's what a kind man does. A nice guy, he's going to people please. They just try to like earn people's affection by pleasing them in areas that really don't level up anything for them, if I can put it that way.
Underneath it, I feel like it's just, you don't even know who that man is because it's a front. It's like the nice guy puts on an appearance and you don't even know like how he feels about anything because he just goes along to get along. The guys who are solid enough to be self-validated and not need the validation of other, whether it's men or women, will be thought of sometimes as assholes because they do have enough backbone to not stand down. I know some guys at my husband's work thinks he's an asshole, and I'm like, I like that. I like that because that means that you actually have an opinion. If everyone's liking you, there's a problem.
The word that's most closely associated historically, anyway, over the last 100 years, is that guys would get called a jerk. And women have only ever called guys jerks if they like them. And it's interesting to note that they're only calling guys that they're attracted to jerks. They never call nice guys jerks, right? So, when there's a conflict between what's said and what's done, yeah, she might call the guy a jerk, but if she's attracted to him, there's something about that guy that draws her in. I've said this before, it's assholes that get things done in the world.
So you talk about handling difficulties, problems in a relationship, that with women, anger just doesn't work. In that it's best to stay calm and collected. Why do you go that route versus anger?
I mean, we've all tried the anger route. I certainly have. It doesn't work. You can raise your voice, blow off steam. I've seen guys punch holes in the wall, stuff like that. That just doesn't work. Like, you're essentially giving her what she wants. She wants a rise out of you. And with women, and I've only learned this in the last few years, it's actually crueler to be cool. So when they try to push your buttons and get under your skin and get you to snap or, just get a strong reaction out of you, it's better just to be cool, turn 180 degrees in that direction, and then proceed to walk that way and just walk away from it. Engaging in that kind of drama or, anger with her, it just doesn't work out. And in today's era of like, Me Too's and false Stevie allegations, anything can be used against you. And, if you have a temper, it's one of the worst things that you can have in a relationship. And especially if you're going through a divorce, because it will be used against you.
No, that's true. And women do. They poke and prod because they want to get that rise. And they want you to get fired up.
So you deny them.
It's like our only tool. It's our only weapon. It's like, oh, okay, Correct. If we can make you emotional, then whatever the issue we're talking about, now we're fighting about a whole different
Yeah.
subject. Now, I will say, if you are typically calm and collected and handling a woman correctly, sometimes raising your voice, adding that bass to your voice where she knows, like, woman, I'm serious. That
Yeah.
very much, I call that, like, a display of masculine power periodically. We need to see that, because
Yeah, I have a really good
sometimes you
example
might
for you
forget that
on that
that's
too.
there.
Yeah, I have a really good example for you on that too. So a
Okay.
really good friend of mine, we were talking about that exact scenario, and he was having a dispute with his wife. They were out at a formal event. She was in a dress and high heels and sort of thing, and she was trying to push his buttons. And the way he said it to her, it was perfectly executed. He said something along the lines of, "It'll be a long walk home in those high heels." And she just shut up. It worked perfectly.
You can't logic a woman out of emotion. Like,
You
you
lose.
have to wait for her to get
Even
back
if you
to a
win, you lose.
baseline to be able to have any kind of fruitful conversation whatsoever. You don't even know, like, if what she's saying is true or if she's just hungry. Okay, let's talk for a minute about jealousy. I think jealousy in the right amount can be quite productive in keeping a woman interested and knowing
Yeah.
that you have value and options. What's your thoughts about using jealousy to your favor?
It's a really powerful tool. You want to deploy it with some discretion though, because if you make her too jealous, she'll make your life a nightmare. You can sort of activate that thing in her where she'll monitor everything. She'll go through your pockets, your car. She'll look for hairs. She'll look at receipts. And even if nothing exists, maybe something exists. But even if nothing exists, she'll find something to get upset about. There's the old saying about, if you go digging for dirt, you're going to find it, right? You go looking for trouble, you're going to find it. But at the end of the day, like, women do want what other women want. That's the easiest way for women to assess the value of a man. And if you're invisible to other women and they don't notice you and they don't express even a little bit of desire for you, like, I'll give you a very simple example. If you go to a restaurant and the waitress is a little bit flirtatious with you, maybe she smiles a little bit more than the average waitress would. Maybe she kind of winks a little bit. Maybe she calls you honey, right? These sorts of things will develop a little bit of competition anxiety in your girlfriend, your wife, whoever it happens to be. And her just seeing other women expressing levels of interest for you is actually a good thing for that relationship. If she doesn't get a little bit jealous of you, even just a little bit, that relationship is going to end at some point, right? Like, again,
Yeah,
it really
it's
just
pretty
boils
close.
down to this. Women want what other women want. And the surest way for a woman to assess the value of a man is for him to be in the vicinity or have attractive women expressing interest in him.
Yeah, it doesn't take much too. I mean, I don't think that most time, even just bringing up a woman's name in a story or conversation with your wife is enough for her wheels to get going. Like, who is this? Who is
Sure.
Tina? Why is he talking? Why is he thinking about Tina? We don't need any help on your guys' side to get jealous. Trust me. So don't try to calm that jealousy too much. Let's use that to your benefit for the
She should
relationship,
have a little bit of
essentially.
something to worry about for sure.
One of the biggest mistakes I'm seeing with men is that there's just no standards at all regarding how their women treat them. And this is creating a low level of respect on the woman's side. Why is
hmm
respect such a huge deal for men? And do you think that women understand your guys' need for respect? Because I know I didn't until a couple of years ago.
A lot of that comes from culture and societal conditioning because women are told to be a challenge, be a little bit difficult, offer them a little bit of a challenge, which often translates to disrespect, pushing back in certain areas, not conceding to things that they really should, that aren't that big of a deal that he's got or that he should have the frame in. For the ladies watching, if there are any, is you cannot disrespect a man. You need to find a way to be useful in his life, and you need to offer him enthusiastic, mind-bending sex that you've never offered to any other guy. If you can do those three things effectively and manage it properly, there's really no reason for him to leave that relationship. Women will bang a guy even if they don't like him, but if they respect him, she'll still bang a guy that she respects, right? But when you lose a woman's respect, you're kind of losing that relationship. It's kind of ending.
So you don't need to, as a woman, respect a man just to have sex with him. But when you're talking about a relationship, especially a long-term relationship, respect is so important for her to maintain that attraction. It's the mental attraction part of it. Correct. So you have to have the physical attraction, but the mental attraction that comes through being a man that she can respect is what's going to allow you to run the distance.
And contempt ties in very closely with respect. And contempt is the clock that ticks down to the end of a relationship. If a woman expresses contempt for you as a man, she doesn't respect you. It's the same thing in a business transaction, right? Like if you have a business partnership or somebody that works for you and they express contempt or smugness or something like that, they just don't respect you. You know, you got to get rid of that guy.
You must deal with disrespect immediately. I know that you said that in the book. I completely agree with you there. I will say, though, as a point to the guys, sometimes we don't even know we're being disrespectful. Sometimes Correct. Things that one man finds disrespectful, another man might not find disrespectful. Sometimes we think we're being helpful. Sometimes we're pointing out a spot to go park in. For some reason, we don't think you have eyeballs.
These little indignities that stack up, become a snowball, become a giant sort of like landslide after a while. And, if you allow them to happen early on, they will continue. You're gonna basically teach her how to treat you, which is gonna come with some disrespect, and she'll continue to express disrespect, which ties into contempt. And again, contempt is the end of the relationship. If a woman doesn't respect you and expresses contempt, it's pretty much done.
No, I agree. Have you seen that video going around with JD Vance and Erica Kirk? The way
with her hand on the back of his head, that one?
Yes. So there's a big debate about whether that is disrespectful. We can't even agree if a woman grasping another married man's head in an intimate manner is disrespectful or not. For the record, I think it's atrocious and highly disrespectful to his wife. So what's your thoughts of that whole scenario?
Yeah. So if their families were close, they were friends, I don't really see a problem with the hand placement on the back of his head. She didn't do any. I mean, it's bordering on an area that was, but I mean, clearly a problem for a lot of people. But if they were very friendly, the Kirk family with the Vance family, and they've known each other for a while, a warm embrace with a hand on the back of the head, I don't really see a problem with something like that.
My husband said that he didn't see anything wrong with it either. And I'm like, you can't touch a man the same way that you touch another woman, even if she embraces another woman that way.
Got it. But you got to understand that JD Vance is a highly respected guy that's climbed the ranks of men around him. He's the vice president. He's the number 2 guy. So it's not that unusual for a woman to sort of express that. You could call it attraction. You could call it like a touch point or whatever it happens to be. But clearly, you would have an issue with it if a woman did that to your husband. He didn't see an issue with it based on the circumstances. But you can understand why women would have an issue with it because it starts to lean towards intimacy. It clearly shows a sign of maybe some level of attraction for him, which is why the women would have an issue with it. I'm also from a European family, so we're very touchy. Like, when you run in a family, there's kisses on the cheeks and that sort of stuff. And, you embrace each other. So it really depends on what their upbringing was. If I'm not mistaken, I think Erica Kirk is Eastern European, isn't she?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure she is. You guys can fact check it in the comments, but that might be like her upbringing too, right?
Right. I do know that she hugs. There's pictures of her hugging the same way. Well, just for any of my viewers who happen to be female, don't ever hug my man that way. There's going to be problems. I'm just laying out. There's going to be problems.
All right, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the courses tab. Newer to the channel, hit subscribe.